Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evan Stankovics, Adult Programming Librarian at the Northside Library, and welcome to the JMRL virtual event, Don't Become a Victim, Fraud, Scams, and Elder Abuse. Thank you so much for joining us, and please do remember to keep checking jmrl.org for a complete and frequently updated schedule of virtual events and programs for all ages. We anticipate that these virtual events will extend well into the summer, so please take a look. This event and all JMRL events have been made possible by the incredible and generous support of the Friends of the Library. This program is also being recorded for inclusion on the JMRL YouTube channel and JMRL podcast on the same page. So if you'd like to rewatch or listen to this program or have a friend who couldn't attend, barring any major technical issues, we will try to get this posted in the next few days. For anyone curious, the mics have been muted for today's event. In the interest of time, we ask that any questions you may have during the course of the demo, you can enter them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll also, at the end of the program, we'll also take time for a Q&A and try to cover as many of your questions as possible. So with that said, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you today's presenters, here to share valuable information on current fraud, scams, elder abuse, and COVID-19 targeted scams. We are delighted to welcome Ron Farmer, President of the Charlottesville Albemarle Triad Salt Council, and David Malakouti, Community Outreach Coordinator at the Office of the Attorney General. Thank you both so much for being here today. And Ron, if you're ready to get us started, I think we can begin.
All right, let's do this. There we go. It should be shared. Well, thank you all again for attending this session. And I really appreciate the fact that we have the technology to do it this way, although I'm going to miss seeing your faces during the presentation. I want to just say, first of all, that I've been doing crime prevention for now a little over 40 years. I started in Glendale PD in 1976 with crime prevention, and now I'm retired. And now that I'm retired, I've gotten involved in a big form of crime prevention in what we're doing. So as you will see, I'm passionate about this, and I'm very fortunate today to be able to present this information. You're going to hear about not being a victim. And I'm really grateful that David Malakouti from the Attorney General's office could join us. So I really appreciate that as well. In a few minutes, I'm gonna share with you, let's see if make this work. I wanna tell you a little bit about partners. David in the Attorney General's office is one of our major partners, of course, but the partnership that we have here between Albemarle County Police Department, Albemarle Sheriff's Office, Charlottesville 911 Emergency Operations Center. It's been a tremendous partnership, and I will tell you a little bit more about Triad in a minute. But first, what I want to do is give you a little bit of an idea. I want to put you in the mindset for retaining what you're going to hear today. You're going to hear a lot of things about fraud, a lot of different kinds of fraud and scams, but what you really need is a mindset for not becoming a victim. So as you go through this, I'm going to start with a little 2-minute video, and at the end of this 2-minute video, I want you to be thinking about what did you learn from this video. So here we go.
A teacher was what I always wanted to be. I got my doctoral degree in early childhood education. My husband and I had a wonderful marriage, and I lost him in September of last year. I got a call from someone who indicated he was from Medicare. They told me that they needed my Social Security number, they needed my bank account number for new Medicare cards. I told them I was not giving them the information and hung up the phone.
There were thousands of consumers affected by this scam. They told consumers that if they didn't provide this information, that they might lose their Medicare benefits, and they implied that that would happen pretty quickly.
They called back and I continued to refuse to give them the information, but they would transfer me to someone else who would give me the same pitch they were giving me. I just wanted them off the phone. I gave them the information they wanted.
These telemarketers are professionals. They know what buttons to push. They know what to say to get people to provide their information. If you receive a call from a government agency, be very skeptical. Government agencies don't call consumers to ask them for money. They don't call consumers to ask for personal information.
I think it is very important that all of us continue to learn about scams.
Because of consumer complaints like the one we received from Dr. Bowers, we were able to go into federal court, get a freeze on the defendant's assets, and shut the company down.
I was so glad to even hear that they did win the case and shut the people down.
So let's think about what are our observations. What is the first thing that comes to your mind after watching that video? And I can't hear your response, so I'm going to go ahead and show the slide. But even the best of us can let our guard down. Dr. Bowers was a smart lady. She had a doctorate, she was a teacher, and she knew when those calls came in that it wasn't right. But eventually they wore her down because they are professionals. These people that are attacking us do this for a living. That's what they do. And they've got it all figured out. And they know that they're going to catch us up if they keep trying. So I want you to think about always just being on your guard. The other thing I want you to think about with this is most of the time, if you lose your money, it's gone. So the trick here is to not lose it. What you hear here today, I want you to think about as not becoming a victim. I want you to be able to report a crime if it happens, but I'm hoping that it won't happen, that you're going to walk away from the session today and not ever become a victim, even though it could still happen. But that's my goal. She reported the crime. And that's another lesson. If something happens, and I know as seniors, anyone 55 and over, we have pride. Sometimes we'll fall victim to things, and we don't want to report it. But you need to report it to the jurisdiction that would handle it and go from there. But don't fail to report it. Knowledge is power. So what you're going to learn today is where do you go to find out more information to stay current and how to do reporting. So with that, we're going to learn about Triad and we're going to learn about resources for you. First of all, I just want to tell you that the Triad, it's not an acronym. It's simply a partnership. It's a term for a partnership between state and local and even some government law enforcement agencies. Here in Virginia, the partnership is coordinated by the Office of the Attorney General, and of which we have David Malakouti on the line, but they've been a very aggressive partner in this Triad group, and you'll see as we go on how that works out. But locally, we have, of course, the police department, the county sheriff's department, the city sheriff's department, and even our local 911 center, the emergency operations division, has been very, very helpful partners. So we'll see how that works. We meet monthly as a council. We call that the SALT Council, Seniors in Law Enforcement Together. And we talk about what we're going to do, how effective we've been, and those are public meetings. And we're welcome to have anyone attend those meetings. And I'm always looking for volunteers. So with that, The goal of Triad is simply education. We want to show you how to avoid being the victim of any of these kinds of frauds, crimes. And sometimes, as you'll see, they're not crimes, but they're misrepresentations. There are a lot of products that are out there, and you see them all the time. Products for wellness, things that are going to cure you from one thing or another. And the Attorney General's office has been extremely aggressive in challenging these people in court and getting settlements. So you're going to see that, but between the Federal Trade Commission and our Attorney General's office here in Virginia, we have two very strong advocates for those kinds of things, and we can talk about that later as well. So the 5 things I want you to remember, and we're going to have a test at the end, is if the offer seems too good to be true, it is. It's too good to be true. Don't fall for that. Secondly, the major thing I want you to remember is these calls and emails, they will come with pressure. They want your money right now. They either want your money or they want your information. They want your data so they can steal your identity, or they can pass it on to somebody else who's going to steal your identity. But if they want your money, and the deals they offer are always right now. You have to do it now. Sometimes they come with fees attached. You won the lottery, but there's a processing fee. You just pay the $75 and you'll get your money. Or they want you to cash a check for them. And you can keep the money, but you have to do it right now, and then you'll get a refund. So be careful about paying up front. Never pay up front. And thirdly, take your time. Don't ever make a decision based on somebody pressuring you. Do your research. We're going to give you today a lot of resources. Sleep on it. Check them out. Make some phone calls. Do some research before you make any decisions on anything. The other thing I want to mention, number 4, is hyperlinks. That's one of the big things now, is pressing on hyperlinks in emails and websites. Those hyperlinks can take you to places that you don't want to be. So be careful about that. Number 5, always the bottom line, when in doubt, check them out. And we're going to give you those resources today. I mentioned the Attorney General's office have been very aggressive. The number 1 scams that have been for quite a while are the IRS scam and the one that you saw, the Medicare fraud scam. Those are really still top of the list scams. And as the lady from the FTC mentioned, federal and state and local agencies do not call people. They'll send you a letter. The police will show up at your door if you've done something wrong, but they don't call people. They don't send you an email. So be cautious of that. Be cautious of donating right now. We've had natural disasters happen, and a lot of things that we want to help people with, because that's our heart, that's our nature. But my recommendation is that only donate to organizations that you know and you trust. Don't do it because they called you on the phone. The robocalls, that's another big one. When you see them coming in on your caller ID, sometimes you won't recognize it, and sometimes it's even disguised. But the best thing to do is not answer them, and the next thing to do is to just hang up on them when they come in and you realize that they're not who you want to be dealing with. The Social Security one has a call right now that's a robocall, and so it's one of those recorded voices like a robot, and it's asking you to press number 1 or your Social Security card will be cut off, and that's all phony. Don't press 1. Don't do any of that. Just hang up. Another big scam that's going on that has been for a while, and we're going to talk about COVID later because I'm going to turn it over to David and let him talk about it. And some of these things we might duplicate. He may repeat some of the things that I'm saying, But if that happens, that's okay. It bears repeating twice if you remember it. But some of the calls now are saying that you get some kind of medical service, maybe genetic testing, genetic screening, and that Medicare will pay for it. Medicare is not going to pay for it. The only time Medicare will pay is if a doctor prescribes it, and they'll know what's authorized and what's not. But these companies that are calling you, and they're telling you that Medicare is going to pay for it, they're not going to pay for it unless your doctor orders it. The wellness products, again, we've been very fortunate with the FTC and with the Attorney General's office, and maybe David can elaborate on this, but they've had a lot of very successful lawsuits and won some successful claims. I don't know, David, if you want to chime in on that for just a second, if you had anything extra to say in that.
Yeah, so essentially we have a consumer protection unit at our office, and I can definitely elaborate on that a little bit later, but what that does is that gives folks an opportunity to reach out to our office, and if they have any issues with a business that they feel are being misleading or selling potentially a product that is not a legitimate product, they can certainly call our office and file a report. We can't represent individuals, but we can certainly, on behalf of the state, investigate those cases and take any legal action that the Attorney General's office sees as fit. So that's something we regularly do. You'll probably see some instances in the news where, for example, the Attorney General's office on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia files a lawsuit against a company for maybe misleading claims or defrauding people. That's essentially what Ron is talking about. So I'll give a little bit more information on that down the road, but that's how that works.
Very good. Thanks. We'll look forward to that in a minute. So moving right along, the jury scams have been another big one. The last couple of years, we've had jury scams, and both the Albemarle County Sheriff's Office and the police department, Albemarle County Police, have had some scams. And the things I want to point out about that is that they've actually taken a caller ID. When you see the caller ID for both of these, they've actually come up with Albemarle County Sheriff's Office and Albemarle County Police Department on your caller ID. And they're saying things like you should have been doing your jury duty and now you're in trouble, and you get to pay a fine. Don't give them any personal information, and certainly don't pay them any money, because if you were really in trouble, the police would be knocking on your door. They're not going to call you and tell you didn't fail for jury duty. That's crazy, and just keep that in the back of your mind, particularly with this the technology that they have to spoof that caller ID. So be careful about that. And with that, I really I want to turn the meeting over to David for a few minutes and let him talk about the Attorney General's office and bring us up to date on what's going on with COVID. I'm going to stop sharing and let you share.
Thanks, Ron. Let me give me a second. Let me pull this up and we'll see if we can get this going. All right. Is that working all right?
Looks good.
Okay, great. So right off the bat, I want to thank Ron and the Charlottesville Albemarle Triad, and of course the Jefferson Madison Library for hosting this and helping us with the technology and making us look good for this. As Ron had mentioned, being aware of scams and knowing what's going on, how to know how these scammers are reaching out to folks, and what to do to protect yourself is something that we should all be doing on a good day. When we don't have a global pandemic going on. But obviously the events of COVID have really kind of changed the way we do things. A lot of people are very kind of uncertain and a little bit more on guard, and that's good. But that's the time when a lot of these scammers are really trying to step up and take advantage of people's fear and uncertainty. So with this, I just want to go through a little bit of what we're seeing out there. A lot of it really isn't too different from what already exists. So Ron had talked a little bit about the jury scam. You'll hear stuff like the grandparent scam, for example, someone calling and saying, hey, I'm your grandchild, or I'm a family member, I have lost my wallet, or maybe I'm in the hospital, I need you to wire me some money. The IRS scam, or maybe a utility scam. So a lot of them are essentially based in the same foundation, but as you'll see, they just kind of take the common theme of the day, which is COVID-19, which is something everyone's going through right now, and it kind of really exploiting that and preying on people's vulnerability. So we'll talk about that. But first, right off the bat, when we talk about scams and fraud, we just kind of want to talk about what is a fraud. I'm not going to go through every little bullet here. You all can read that, and I know it'll be recorded. But just generally, someone's making a false statement and intending for you to make a decision based on that false statement. So you'll see a couple of examples at the bottom. If you're purchasing a car and the seller says, well, this car's never been in an accident, that's the information that you use to make a decision on whether you want to purchase that car or not. If that individual knows that that car has been in an accident and they want to, continue trying to pass it off as if it hasn't been an accident, to open up to a fraud case. You'll be arrested if your debt is not paid. We heard some of that in some of Ron's examples as well. Again, no one's coming to arrest you, but they're using that information to get you to act. So a lot of it is based on fear. A lot of it is based on emotion. They're counting on you to have kind of a lot of embarrassment about what's going on. You don't want anybody to know that this is happening, so you'll comply with their demands. They don't want you to report what's going on. So sometimes they may be threatening, or they may tell you to just keep that information between you and the scammer. You'll obviously think that there's somebody else, but you won't share that with anybody. So that's kind of how these predators work. They're really relying on you to make an emotional decision, have some fear, have some embarrassment about what's going on. But hopefully with what we talk about today, that's stuff you can be able to take and really learn and be on the lookout for how these folks operate. Again, a lot of it is really rooted in the same foundation. They're trying to get money. They're trying to get personal information. So that's something that you just want to be aware of. Oh, let's see here. I think I may have gone a little bit too far. Let's see here. All right. So really quick with COVID. So we're not from the Department of Health. I don't have any, this is all information that I took from the World Health Organization and the Department of Health. As you can see, we just want to give you a little context of how this is impacting folks. These are the numbers across the country, nearly 2.1 million confirmed cases as of yesterday. The World Health Organization has a really great site that updates these numbers, so you have some real-time information. Over 100,000 deaths so far as of yesterday. 2.31 million people in unemployment. That's at its highest peak. So 14.7% of the country in April was at the highest peak. I think those numbers are starting to adjust right now, but that really shows you how this has impacted people. And when you look at this through the eyes of someone who's trying to scam people, these situations put people through a lot of fear, maybe a little bit of desperation, not having a job, not knowing what's going to happen. And it really makes people vulnerable for these scams. So that just really kind of shows you the scope that we're looking at with folks. In February 2020, the National Bureau of Economics Research declared that we were in a recession. So that again adds to the uncertainty and strain on individuals across the country. These are the Virginia numbers right here. So over 55,000 confirmed cases, almost 6,000 hospitalizations, and over 1,500 total deaths in Virginia. 4.2 million unemployed. That's 10.6% unemployment. So again, that puts people in a really vulnerable spot. It makes them, fearful, unsure about what's going on. So that makes them really prime candidates for these scammers. Here are the common scam methods that we see. Telemarketing and robocalls. We've heard some cases of door-to-door scams, and these are all COVID-related ones. email and text message scams, fake check scams with the economic impact payment that comes out. Again, these are nothing new. This is nothing that no one is recreating the wheel on how to scam people. They're just taking the current theme of the day, which is COVID, the current thing that is, putting a lot of fear in people and uncertainty in a lot of people, and exploiting that. So they really want you to rely on an emotional decision. I know Ron had mentioned that earlier. So please always take your time, do your homework, and people are reaching out to you out of the blue, trying to get information, trying to sell you something, or trying to say that you owe some money. So just take a little bit of time, step back, and think about what's being asked. So some of the common email scams that we're seeing regarding COVID are emails that claim to be from official sources. So that could be the CDC, World Health Organization, various government agencies, federal and state. These are often phishing scams. So that means that they will send you a link and say, we have some current information on COVID. Please click here to learn more about it. Once you click that link, it may ask you for some personal information. It may have a form there, or send you to a site that may download malware onto your computer or your phone. If you don't know what malware is, that's basically just malicious programming that can get onto your computer and corrupt your information, steal information from your computer. So a lot of folks will rely on these phishing scams to really direct folks to that fraudulent website. So we always recommend, make sure you're checking out the official sources. So there's obviously a lot of information out there, a lot of official sites, and we'll get into a couple more later on. But as you can see here are a couple of examples: cdc.gov, World Health Organization, USA.gov, VDH is the Virginia Department of Health. Those are the official sites, and those are the ones that we encourage folks to check to for the most up-to-date and accurate information regarding COVID. So you're not going to really get much in terms of legitimate emails trying to get you to share some of your personal information in exchange for official information regarding COVID. So just be on the lookout for those. Again, this is nothing new. We've seen this in the form of maybe banking scams. So for example, you might get something from your bank saying you've been locked out, please enter your password here, or click this link to enter your password. That's a phishing scam. This works on the same principle. Charity scams, I mentioned the unemployment numbers at the very beginning. So obviously a lot of people are hurting right now. They may have lost their job. They may have their hours reduced. So a lot of folks want to help. They also want to help the first responders as well. A lot of people are really stepping up, and we're really seeing that happen across the country, which is a fantastic thing. They want to help by donating meals, donating food, donating personal protective equipment. Just be aware of who it is you're donating to. It's awesome that folks want to help out, but if you are donating to an organization that may not use that funding for what they say they will be using it for, that's something to be really aware of. Avoid cash donations, gift cards, or wiring money to anybody you don't know or any organization that you're not aware of how they're going to use that funding. Really do your homework about who you're donating to. So there's a lot of really great groups and legitimate organizations out there. Just take a little bit of time and learn who they are. And especially be wary of GoFundMe or other crowdfunding sites. If you don't have a lot of experience with those are basically sites that anybody can set up an account with and fundraise for whatever purpose they want. It can be anything from donating money for a trip or donating money for medical expenses. But the reality is you don't really know who that individual is or how they're going to use those funds. So again, this just goes back to taking the time to learn about who's doing what and how they're going to use that funding. Prevention, testing, and cure scams. Just really be aware. Again, a lot of people are unsure. They're afraid about what's going on, and they'll take any piece of hope that they can get to make sure they don't catch this virus or they can test for it. To date, nothing prevents the contraction of COVID other than the recommendations, which are social distancing, wearing masks in crowded areas, and then just increased hygiene and sanitation. So just be aware of that. Anybody that claims that they have some sort of preventative medicine or preventative treatment, as of right now, there's nothing out there that exists. So don't shell out any money for that, or at least do your homework on it. Testing should be done at authorized locations. So that means at a doctor's office. I know the state and localities are setting up testing sites across the Commonwealth. So really take some time to make sure that it's a legitimate testing site. Home test kits are being developed, but they're not widely available. So anybody that says, you know, I can sell you a test kit, usually that's something that is either not legitimate or hasn't been really vetted for home use, or something that will give you the caveat of, we can test, but also go to your doctor and have them test you too, which is essentially just a double check. So just really make sure that any testing that's done for COVID is done through a legitimate source. Again, that's through your doctor's office, just a proper clinic, or any site that may be set up by the Virginia Department of Health across the Commonwealth. And then again, to date, there's no known cure or treatment or vaccine for COVID. So anybody that says they have that, any type of treatment or vaccine, that should be a huge red flag right there. But again, a lot of people are really unsure and uncertain about what's going on. So you'll see folks that'll try to push this out through emails. We have heard cases of people going door to door and trying to push this out. And again, that's really preying on people's emotions, people's kind of uncertainty about what's going on. So just really, really be aware of that. And as always, I'm going to stress this every single time: double check, and do your homework. Contact tracing scams. So you've probably heard the term contact tracing in the news. If you don't know what that is, the Virginia Department of Health is basically reaching out to folks. If they get a report that someone tests positive, and anytime there's a positive test, that gets reported to the Department of Health. When they get a report that there's a positive test, they will reach out to that individual or the doctor's office of that individual and try to create essentially a map of who that individual has been in contact with. So that is a method to be able to track the virus. And once they get that information about who that individual has been in contact with, then they will reach out to those individuals. So for example, if I'm tested positive, the Department of Health might reach out to me and say, David, who have you been in contact with in the last 48 hours? Have you been in public? Have you gone to a friend's house? Have you visited family members? And they will ask me if I can provide as much information as possible regarding those individuals and how to get in touch with them. They'll reach out to those individuals and say, you may have come in contact with somebody, please be aware, and provide them with resources on symptoms to look out for, and recommend that they quarantine for 14 days. So that's something that the Virginia Department of Health is doing to help manage the spread and really understand where it's spreading and how it's spreading amongst people across the state. But this lends itself to scams, right? So you'll see with the contact tracing scams, we have had reports of text messages or emails that are coming through saying that for example, I may get one and say, hey, David, you've been in contact with someone who has tested positive. Please click this link and provide more information about who you are. And again, that's phishing or malware right there. The Virginia Department of Health will not send you a link. They will call you, but they will not really leave a lot of information due to health privacy restrictions. So they will just leave a phone number. You can go to the Virginia Department of Health and look at the phone number to call back. That's what we recommend. So if you do receive a call from someone claiming to be from the Virginia Department of Health, I would recommend go to the Virginia Department of Health website, vdh.virginia.gov, and then call the phone number that's on there to be able to really kind of certify that that is somebody that works for the Department of Health. And what I should clarify, you might want to check with your local health district. So Wherever you are across the Commonwealth, you might want to find out the local health district and call that particular area. And then just know that the Virginia Department of Health will not ask for money or fees. They may ask for your date of birth or address, but providing that information is optional. So you don't have to provide that. That's just really so they can hold on to that documentation and really track what's going on. With the economic impact payment, so we all heard in April, the government released an economic stimulus of about $1,200 per person. They began that distribution in April 2020. Usually it's a direct deposit for the 2019 IRS tax returns on file. So, you know, if you've done that, chances are you probably got it. But they have started putting out checks or debit cards for folks who have not received it. Naturally, this kind of lends itself for scammers, right? Just like we hear with IRS scams, we hear with tax scams. This really sets it up for folks to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm with the IRS. I'm looking for some additional information, or maybe you need a fee. They'll try to get you to pay a fee, or they'll ask you to hand over your checking information, your banking information, which they will then use for their purposes. So just be really aware of that. irs.gov/coronavirus is a great resource to really follow up on the update of that when it's been distributed, and phone numbers you can contact if you haven't received your stimulus payment just yet. There's also information there about how to receive your stimulus if you are on Social Security or if you have dependents. So I absolutely recommend that you check that out. That is the best source for that. But just be aware of requests for information, banking information. Be aware of anybody, we need you to pay a fee for processing this, etc. So those are things that you need to be on the lookout for. Essentially the same information that you would be using to protect yourself during tax season as well. That's the kind of stuff that you want to have in your tool bag handy. Price gouging is something I want to touch on. So in Virginia, when there's a declared state of emergency, it prohibits retailers and suppliers from, quote, charging unconscionable prices for necessary goods and services. So that's our price gouging law in Virginia. That's something that's enforced by our office. Now we are still in a state of emergency. So the governor declared that in March. And as long as that state of emergency is in effect, the price gouging statute is in effect as well. So when we talk about necessary goods and services, we're talking about water, ice, food, in this case, cleaning products, hand sanitizers, medicine, personal protective equipment, anything that is related to the COVID crisis or any type of emergency situation is something that you want to watch out for. We have had a lot of cases of price gouging in the Commonwealth and really across the country. FTC is investigating. So what I'd recommend is reach out to our office. We have a complaint form at our consumer protection section that you can file, and we will investigate that and reach out to those retailers and see really what's going on. We don't really want anybody taking advantage of folks in the Commonwealth during this time, especially when times are tough, especially when there really is a need for a lot of these products. So that's something we just want to make sure that we're for. Just keep in mind, if there's anything out there that you know, this is way too expensive, this is way beyond what I would normally pay for, that could potentially be price gouging. And that's not necessarily the retailer's fault. Every time we investigate these cases, we often see cases of suppliers jacking up the prices of products, and then the retailer has to pass that cost on to the consumer. So it's not necessarily a malicious intent by the retailer. It may be a supplier issue too. So that's something we will investigate and follow up on. We've seen cases of this. A lot of people are doing a lot of shopping online. So we've heard of cases of online providers using Amazon as a platform or eBay to sell different products, of price gouging as well. So that's something that you want to really just be aware of. you can certainly reach out to our office if you do find something online, and we usually direct that to the appropriate agency that handles that. So if it's a retailer based in another state, we can convey that to that state's Attorney General's office as well. And these are just some resources to check out. Again, I talked about these a little bit. USA.gov shows you the federal response to the coronavirus and what federal agencies are doing. The FTC.gov is a great resource. Even on a good day, it's a fabulous resource for really what the most common scams are. They've got examples of scams up there, so you can actually hear what some of these phone calls sound like. They'll post those up there, so please do check that out. Virginia Updates, that is a great website to stay on top of what's going on here in Virginia. That's kind of their clearinghouse site, so you can get connected with VDH through there. The Better Business Bureau's charitynavigator.org. We had talked about fundraising scams or charity scams. That is a great website to check out to make sure that the organization that you're donating to is legitimate. If you haven't checked it out, they will give you a full breakdown of the money that nonprofit funding. So they'll say, you know, X percentage is used for overhead and the rest of it is used for whatever the cause may be. So all year round, that's a great resource. And then of course, our website, ag.virginia.gov, our consumer protection hotline is there. We've got more information on our consumer protection page. And we've got a lot of information too on Triad. Ron had talked about Triad, and that's something that we support. We provide technical assistance for Triad and help partner up with them across the Commonwealth. If you Triad or have not been to a meeting, I encourage you. I know right now it's kind of a tough time to go to the meeting, but I know Ron will share how they're meeting right now during the COVID crisis. But one of the things that we always try to emphasize is, and this goes back to the one of the earlier slides where I showed, where it's fear, embarrassment, lack of reporting. Take this information and share it with your neighbors, right? We don't want this information to just sit with you. We want you to share it with your neighbors, share it with your community. This is all really about community. And hopefully, if someone in your community does come across something like this or gets approached by a scammer, they'll either have the information to know what to look out for, or they may know that you have gone through something like this and that you know what to look out for, and they can confide in you about what they've seen, and you can help kind of put the brakes on what's going on and give them some good information and show them in the right direction. And as Ron had also mentioned, definitely try to report this to your local jurisdiction. Can't guarantee that they're going to do anything if you have lost money, but it's really important for them to know this is how we learn about what's going on. Law enforcement shares this information with us, and then we can share it across the Commonwealth as well. So we can look and see what trends are going, we can see what scams are coming up, and then share that with folks. So, but the local law enforcement can't know what's going on unless that gets reported. So just report it so that they at least have that for their records and their ability to share that with other folks as well. And with that, that's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. That's my phone number, my email. Email is probably the best way to reach me right now, since I'm not always in the office. That I should probably update that. But please feel free to email me if you have any questions or need some additional information. And with that, I'm gonna send it back to Ron. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get my screen back where we were. And sharing that. Right. All right, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes as quickly as I can going through a few more things before we wrap it up and get to a Q&A. And maybe some questions will be answered there. But here's some don'ts. I just want you to think about this for a minute. These are don'ts. Don't say yes on the phone when you get these calls. They're recording the calls. They have your name, And when you say, they say, is this Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so? And you say yes, don't say yes. Just ask them who are they calling? And then you hang up on them. Be careful what you throw away in the trash. We do still have dumpster divers. So if you have information, personal information, financial information, get a shredder and don't put that out there in the trash for people to go through. Don't pay by wire transfer. David mentioned that before, and that's a very important one to repeat. Don't pay by gift card. I've seen lots of scams where they want to pay by gift card. There's a lot of gift cards for sale. You can go into any market or store now and get gift cards for everybody, and that's great. But when you go to buy these gift cards, look in the back and make sure that the code is not scratched off already. That's a big one. There are people that will scratch off those codes, and by the time you get out to your car, they will have spent the money you put on that card. By the time you get home, it'll be gone. So make sure that if there's a little code on the back, that's scratched off at the cashier. And so people will just go through and put those out, and they will have captured that code on the back of the card. Careful about that. The prepaid credit cards are very popular, but be careful about the fine print. I've got some videos on that talk about how you can get taken to the cleaners on that. And you might put a couple $100 on that card, and you only get to use, $160 or $170 of it by the time they've taken all their fees out of it. So there are good ones and there are not so good ones. You just have to do your research on that. So beware of hidden fees on those cards. So really quickly, Medicare, we saw that video. Foreign lotteries, no such thing. They're all illegal. The tech support scams, that's a really big one. Don't fall for that. The other one that I'm still getting a call every other week trying to renew the warranty on my car. And I did have a warranty on my car, but it's not expired. And so don't call those people back either. Home repair, home improvement, grandparent scam still works, only now they're changing it to COVID. So if you have Facebook and people look at that and they find out who your families are, they can actually find a distant relative that you would recognize the name. So when they call you, go, oh, I haven't heard from you in a long time. And they'll say, well, I'm really in trouble, I need money. And they'll want you to either wire transfer or send them give them a gift card. So don't do that. Boy, I'm getting emails from my web service provider saying that something's wrong and they want me to check in. They're holding my emails. I'm not going to get any emails. And I've got a whole box full of emails. So I know that's not true, but I don't want to click on that, and because they're going to ask me for my information. So if you get emails like that your emails account's going to be cut off, contact your provider directly. Don't answer and don't click on those either. Phony charities, you still get calls from police and fire, and we want to support them. But 9 times out of 10, those are not going to go to the police department. They're going to some phony place. So you want to check them out. Like David said, go to the charity website that he had there. Lots of seminars out there offering you a free lunch for all kinds of things. A lot of financial advice being given. And I want you to know that not all these things are scams, but you want to check them out. You want to make sure that they're legitimate companies and legitimate financial advisors. And you can do that on, the link is on this page, but it's www.investor.gov. Write that one down. Right on their front page, you can either put the name of a company in or the name of an individual and find out if they have a license to give financial advice. That's very important that they have a license, because then you have recourse if you don't like the advice they're giving you. Let's see, identity theft, that's a real big one. I'm going to skip, I have a video, but I'm going to skip that video because we're running short of time.
In today's connected world.
Skip that one. And I want to give you some more resources. number one, if you're actually experiencing a crime that's happening, you want to call 911 and report the crime immediately. But if it's not a crime that's taking place and you want to call the non-emergency number here in Albemarle County, you can call that 977-9041 number. You're going to get the people that answer the 911 call, but on the non-emergency side. And they're very knowledgeable, and they will help you find resources even with these kinds of scams. They will help you find resources at that line. The Attorney General's Office, Consumer Protection Hotline, I want to tell you, the Attorney General Office puts on a seminar for Triad leadership once a year. Last year, I sat at a table with one of the ladies that answers that hotline, and I cannot tell you what a sweet, knowledgeable, compassionate person she was. And she's waiting for your call. And they have a lot of information. So if you have any questions, that hotline, I can recommend it. You can subscribe to actually getting email alerts from both the Office of the Attorney General and from the FTC, and they will send you updates on current frauds and scams, both very good resources to have. If you're the victim of identity theft and you report it to the police department, you have some recourse. The Attorney General's Office here has a program called the ID Theft Passport, and that'll get you back on track if you fall victim to that. Annual credit reports always good to get. The Do Not Call registry, I know it's kind of tough because you have to keep redoing it from now and then. It expires. But use the Do Not Call registry. Another great resource that we have here is JABA. That's the Jefferson Area Board for Aging. And they're a good resource for seniors. There's a little crime mapping program that I put on there. I actually got that right off of Albemarle County Police Police Department's website. You can go into that and you can actually put your address in, and you can see all the crimes that are happening within a block or within a mile or 2 or 3, whatever you set up, and they'll even send you an email if you want it. And it's very timely. You can get these emails. They'll show up within a day, 24 hours after a crime is reported. So they're very efficient here in the county. So I want you to know that you can contact me through the Albemarle, the Charlottesville Albemarle Triad.org website. If you go onto that website, you'll get a lot of information. If you want copies of my presentation, I can give it to you in a PDF form. I saw that was one of the questions up. So I can give it to you in a PDF form, but you need to go onto that website, leave a message on that website. I get those messages, and along with a couple of other people. So it will not go unanswered, and I will get you a PDF copy. And I know, David, if you want, I can do both of them as a PDF. If you want, you'll have to let me know.
Yeah, that's fine. I can. I'll provide Ron with a copy of mine as well. And if you reach out to Ron, if you don't mind, sending it out that way.
If you send me if you put a message into the Charlottesville Albemarle County Triad website and ask for the slides from today's presentation, I will send you a PDF version of both of those slides. Give me a few days. Give me a few days, folks. So the test, do you remember the 5 things? Okay, real quick, the 5 things. If it seems too good to be true, it is. Never pay up front, never pay money to get money. Always take your time, sleep on it before you make any decisions. Don't click on those links. If in doubt, check them out. And I hope we've given you some resources today to check these things out before you commit any funds to it or give anyone your information. With that, I'll turn it over to Evan. If we have any time left, I think we've got just a couple more minutes left for questions. I think I answered one of them.
Yes, Ron, David, thank you both so much. Yeah, we definitely have some time for questions. So there's a number of ways. If you want to type it into the chat, go ahead and type a question into the chat. There's also a box at the bottom that says Q&A. You can use that. Or if anybody knows how to use the raise your hand feature, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can ask your question out loud. So you got 3 options. All right, Ron, David, I think we've got a question here. Somebody is wondering what the chance is of getting your money back after a scam.
Well, Dave, you can kick in on this if you want as well, but I would say that if you've lost the money, the chances of actually getting that money back are not as good as Dr. Bowers. And I don't know that she got hers back either. So it's tough to get your money back after it's gone. I've heard of some cases up in Orange County. They had a great story of somebody that actually got most of their money back after putting out a lot of money. But it's not often that you get your money back. And that's why I keep stressing the mindset that we have to be in is not to fall victim, to be empowered in advance and don't get pressured into doing anything right away. Check them out.
Yeah, I'll say the chances of getting your money back is pretty slim. And then the reason being is a lot of these scammers, they are masters at really disguising who they are, where they're from. They really use technology to their advantage. So Ron had mentioned phone spoofing. You can do that through a computer. You can make your phone number come up as a completely different phone number. So you could be on one side of the world and it could be a 434 or 804 area code. So they're really masters at disguising where they're calling from. Again, one of the reasons I mentioned it's hard to get them is lack of details. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they're from, what they're using. You don't know what they look like. So it's just a really difficult process. And a lot of times it's international. So it's overseas, meaning it's difficult for us. And when I say us, I mean the Commonwealth and the United States to be able to often track it. So they use technology to really disguise where they're from, and if it's overseas, sometimes we don't have the ability to investigate cases over there, at that level. So that's the really difficult thing. So it's really just best to be on guard and make sure that it doesn't happen. But if it can happen, just that's why I stress make sure to report that to law enforcement so they have that on record.
Let me just add to that really quickly. I've been involved in the last few years with 2 different email investigations that were business fraud emails. And the one of them, the forensic experts traced the source to a car dealership in India. That was only $20,000, so not a lot of effort. And the victim didn't actually pay the money, so they were lucky. The other one was $1 million, and they lost it, and it's gone. And the FBI and everybody worked on that case, and it was gone. So it's tough. Law enforcement will work on these cases, but if you lose the money, it's hard. What else? Boy, I just thank you all for being such a great audience and rolling with this technology with the chat and the hands and all of that. Really cool. I just wish you all well, and I want you to know that you can reach out to me through that website, and I will get back to you. And look forward to a time that we can actually have meetings together. If you're interested in going to a Triad meeting, we've been doing them on Zoom a couple of times. So hopefully we'll get back to an actual meeting in person pretty soon. But if you're interested in getting invited to a Zoom meeting or our next meeting, again, drop me a note through the sheriff's office on that website, and we'll invite you.
Ron, I do see a hand raised.